A new Cold War. The Chinese Communist Party is the greatest threat facing the United States, and there's a secret to beating the CCP that no one has ever tried. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. Erasing hard drives shouldn't be difficult, neither should pricing, licensing, and use. Securely and easily erase all kinds of drives with PC Doctor Drive Erase, all starting under $60. I'll tell you more at the end. The Chinese Communist Party has America in its sights, a rapidly expanding military, hundreds of billions of dollars of intellectual property theft, biological warfare. None of this is new, but it took the US decades to realize the threat. Now, China is one of the few bipartisan issues in a heavily divided US government. Even during the Trump administration, when President Trump began the trade war against China, Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer said this:
I don't agree with President Trump on a whole lot, but today I want to give him a big pat on the back. He is doing the right thing when it comes to China.
Kind of unbelievable he said that. But the trade war was just the beginning. The US military is going into overdrive, rebuilding the US Navy, developing hypersonic weapons and missile defense systems, replenishing ammo and missile stocks, and working closely with allies in the Indo-Pacific. On the economic front, the US has restricted China's access to critical technology like semiconductors, break China's monopolies on rare earth minerals and pharmaceuticals, and work with allies to de-risk or decouple economies. These are all good things, especially after decades of doing nothing to stop the Chinese Communist Party. But there is a fatal flaw to all of these tactics. And the US is missing the one thing that could really be effective at stopping the Chinese regime. I'll tell you what it is after this quick commercial break. Welcome back. Hopefully from an ad, possibly a brief black screen if we were demonetized. Support China Uncensored on patreon.com/China Uncensored. So what really is the secret to stopping the Chinese regime? Well, first you have to understand why what the US is currently doing isn't working. Standing up to the Chinese regime militarily and economically is important. But here's the thing. The Chinese Communist Party does not care about the Chinese people. Remember how they locked entire cities of millions of people in their apartments to starve to death under the name of zero COVID? It doesn't matter how lethal the US military is or how devastating economic sanctions are if it doesn't hurt the Chinese regime itself. If anything, the party can use it to drum up even more nationalistic support for the regime. What the US needs to do is make it personal. Directly target the top leadership of the Communist Party. You might not be surprised to learn that the party elite are all extremely wealthy, and they park a lot of that wealth in the West. Now, according to Chinese law, that should be impossible. People are supposed to have a hard limit of exporting just $50,000 a year. So all those Chinese-owned fancy New York City condos and houses in Los Angeles, by definition, must have been bought through corruption. Now, the US could handle this a couple different ways. One option would be using something like the Magnitsky Act. It's basically targeted sanctions on specific officials, cutting them off from international banking systems. That was used pretty effectively on Hong Kong officials. Former Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam was cut off from pretty much all banks. She literally had piles of cash in her home because she had nowhere to put it. I could tell her where to put it. But there might be an even more effective way to use this corruption. Your average Chinese person is struggling. Some estimate youth unemployment is getting close to 50%. Xi Jinping's response to that was to tell them to go eat bitterness. You don't think that's causing huge resentment? China is a powder keg right now. All it needs is the US to push. Start talking about all this corrupt Chinese money in the US. As retired US Marine Colonel Grant Newsham says, it's one thing to blame China's problems on foreigners treating the PRC unfairly, but explaining away a CCP boss's $20 million condo in New York City, the 3 relatives with US green cards, and the 6 businesses they own is a very different thing. How do you think all those disenfranchised young men in China who can't find jobs or wives would feel if they saw how corrupt communist leadership was? Especially since they're the ones who always are talking about America being China's greatest enemy? How do they explain putting all that wealth in China's greatest enemy, huh? The Communist Party knows corruption is their greatest weakness. Former Chinese leader Hu Jintao once said at a meeting of top communist officials, corruption could prove fatal to the party and even cause the collapse of the party and the fall of the state. Back in 2012, the shady financials of top party leaders and their families was exposed by both the New York Times and Bloomberg. And the Communist Party freaked out. Bloomberg was blocked in China, and they caved to the pressure. Leaked audio revealed Bloomberg News killed a Xi family story to avoid upsetting China's government. The New York Times was also blocked in China after that article. And oddly, in the decades since, the topic of family corruption in China's communist leadership hasn't really been explored by any mainstream media outlet. Back in 2016, when the Panama Papers exposed Chinese elites' secret dealings, the Communist Party went nuts and tried to censor any bit of information about the Panama Papers. The Communist Party knows corruption is its Achilles heel. So it's time for the US to take aim and bring down the beast. This episode is sponsored by PC Doctor Drive Erase. There are a lot of reasons you might want to erase a hard drive. When you recycle an old computer, before you send it in for repair, or if it has sensitive data that reveals your shady ties to mole people living deep underground. Erasing drives should be easy. That's why PC Doctor Service Center Drive Erase provides an easy, guided path to erasing hard drives properly. It automatically removes a freeze lock and erases hidden HPA and DCO sectors, and it uses the most secure erasure method available for the drive. After it's done, it verifies that everything got erased properly and gives you a PDF certificate that's also stored on the drive. Drive Erase supports MMC partition regions, NVMe namespaces, and multiple drives in parallel. And there's no limit to how many drives it can be used with. So if you're ready for an easy-to-use solution to clean out your hard drives, use PC Doctor Drive Erase. Plus, we have something special for China Uncensored viewers. Get 10% off PC Doctor Drive Erase using coupon DE10OFF. Use the link in the description below to learn more. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.